And we're alive, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the second episode of the Comm Relay. Today, possibly featuring my cat, depending on what she decides to destroy tonight. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about master modes, the very controversial topic apparently in the recent couple weeks, both on Spectrum, both in SC Live and ISC. And yeah, we have a couple of guests we have one guest and hopefully a few more coming right after, who would like to share their thoughts. I think Arcane. I think everybody hopes my cat makes a surprise visit. I think morning crew. I think everyone would actually like to see my cat more than they would like to see me. At least my coworkers at work definitely like my cat more than they like me. And you know what? I think I'm equally fluffy. But anyway, morning from Texas, crew. Crew, I actually didn't know you were in Texas. That's news to me. I'm sorry about my creaky chair. I have tried everything. I have broken several ratchet wrenches trying to tighten this chair, and it still squeaks. I have given up. There is nothing left. I'm eventually just gonna throw it out the window and buy a new one. Anyway, yeah, never share your stage with kids or animals. That's actually you do not have a Texan accent. That's true. But yes, never share the stage with kids or animals. Kids, it usually goes the main host, then animals, and then kids. Kids upstage everyone. That's depending on how small they are. The smaller the child, the more likely they're to upstage you because they're still cute when they're small. Crew, would you actually, since you're watching, would you actually like to hop on as a guest? You're already on the Discord, so if you can, hop on as a guest. I would like to hear you talk about Master Modes, because I'm sure you have checked out Master Modes. So Master Modes, what is Master Modes? I'm sure those of you who watched CitizenCon last year, you saw the demo of how they want to redo how we control our ships with Master Modes. Those of you who haven't have probably seen the Inside Star Citizen. That was, I think, 2-3 weeks ago. And those of you who haven't seen that have probably seen my video on it from last week, it was. And if you haven't seen that, then you probably saw the SC Live that was this week also. And if you haven't seen any of those, then you are in for quite a surprise with 323, because that's when apparently we have Master Modes launching. Anyway, we're already lined up for our first caller, which is going to be Kiosa. I'm gonna drag him down, and I already had your name in here, so let me drag you down, and mute and unmute. And unmute yourself as well. Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
I'm good. Hello. How are you?
I am doing great. I have a migraine and I'm on a shit ton of painkillers.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Oh, you know what? That's my favorite way to work and be live in front of all the cameras and all the ring lights. I am having a great time. But anyway, enough about me. I am very happy to have you on the show again. You were either our last caller on the last show, or I had you in already. I don't know. Your name was already on the screen. I didn't put it in there right now, so I guess it was meant to be. So, Master Modes. As far as I understand, you were doing research on Master Modes as I was doing my intro. So, so let's hear it. What do you think about Master Modes from your very fresh perspective?
Yeah, same as last time. I like to stay, quite a ways away from the project. Like the things you just listed, I have not seen any of those. I have heard a bit about, some of the rumblings lately. Some of the creators are a little more or less upset about things. So I have been hearing more about them. And I have tried master modes in Arena Commander a few times, just to kind of see what we're getting into, what the future looks like, and stuff like that. But as a non-PvP boy, I don't see a ton of changes outside of you have that switch where you're in, combat mode, or you're, was it navigation mode, I think
There's
is what it's
nav
called.
mode and SCM mode, which nobody
Yeah.
really can agree on what SCM stands for. I have heard like 4 different things that it stands for, and no one can agree on it.
See, I thought SCM was the salvage stuff.
That's
There's RCM, there's CM.
there's just CM.
Ah, I thought there was an SCM. Anyway.
No, it's like a amalgamation of them of them both, I guess somehow.
Got it. Okay. So, of the things I did notice, or I did like, especially pay attention to, like I think the gimbal change is really good. That's like probably the biggest biggest thing about master modes that I hard agree on, because I did always find it to be very annoying, when people just don't miss their shots. Like they can't miss because they have their gimbal.
Yeah.
And I always found that to be, I'm not a big PvP guy, but like, the handful of times I did try it, I was like, I can tell he's using gimbal and he's just back strafing or he's just going in a big circle and he's just, like,
Yeah,
so
gimbals
I
are really
loved,
hit or miss depending on how the server is doing and everything. Because, and basically what they're doing right now is they're actually regressing back to like before 3.15 when they introduced automatic gimbals at some point because that didn't exist and then they introduced it. But anyway, continue.
okay, so it's more of a server base, so they don't always work. It's okay. Interesting.
Yeah, sometimes you will get sometimes they will work and they will work very consistently. Other times they will just miss everything. And it also depends on what your target is doing and what you are doing. So like if your target is very evasive, I think that's where the pip wiggling tactic came from. I don't know if pip wiggling is an exploit or not. I think CAG said that it's an exploit. I don't believe it is. But apparently if you do that, auto gimbals are not going to hit you ever. Which I'm not sure how it works, but anyway, that's what I heard.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I don't love the big square. I think that's a little silly. I kind of wish they'd get rid of like the reticle altogether. I know that the community would absolutely lose their minds. There's no way that would ever happen.
Yeah.
But that's something I kind of like. Like I play a lot of realistic and simulator War Thunder, and in that. So like in normal War Thunder, you have your pip, right? You can see where to shoot to hit the person, right?
Yeah.
But in the realistic modes, you don't have
don't
that.
have
And
that.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, the
I
realistic
can
battles in War Thunder it really takes some skill. I have tried the ground realistic and it was a massacre. I
it's
could
so
not.
fun though.
It is fun, but
So
I could
fun.
not. I could not.
Yeah, I don't think they would ever do anything like that. I kind of wish they would, but I understand that will never happen. My biggest worry is that it's going to affect low fly in a negative way. A lot of the people in the community and the low fly community have kind of voiced their opinions or concerns. I personally don't think it is going to change very much in terms of low fly. Some people have explained to me that I'm wrong, but I guess we'll see. Because I am a low
You're a
fly
low
boy
fly.
at
Yeah.
heart. That's my main thing for sure. I make my money here and there, but low flying is what I do.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious to see what excuse me, what master modes changes about that. I really don't think it's going to be a lot. I'm kind of curious to see if we will go to navigation mode to fly, and then yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see what we'll do. If we'll limit in navigation mode, or if we'll just stay in combat mode, because combat mode is around the same speed that we're all normally moving at, anyways.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking because you could stay in nav mode to low fly because that gives you that extra speed. But at the same time, what a lot of people forget about in master modes is that when you are in Atmo, even if you're in nav mode, you're still limited by whatever the max speed of your ship in Atmo is. So if you're
Correct.
flying a Connie, you're still not going to go faster than 100 meters per second.
Right. Yeah.
So I think the question is kind of moot. I don't think it's gonna matter. The only difference I see that you have shields if you're an SCM, so if you happen to hit something, you maybe have a chance your shields are gonna help you, but shields apparently are not doing anything against collisions anymore. So I don't think it matters personally, but I haven't tried it with low flying.
I've never seen a shield save somebody from a crash personally, but maybe that I don't. Yeah, I don't know.
That's something for you to test in 323, I guess, to see if
Yeah, do
shields
I
help.
die
But I don't think they
faster?
do. I think they changed it when they changed the shield mechanics to sign distance fields, which was, what, 3, 4 patches ago. They no longer do anything against collisions. Back in the day, like way back in the day, if you had shields on and you hit the ground, you would lose shields. And this is like way back. This is like 312 or something.
Oh,
So, but yeah, I don't think it's. Yeah, I guess we will see because most low flyers that I see, they're not really flying that far above SCM. I mean, you see some guys really, zooming above the surface, but most guys I see, it's, 200-300s, which is very much within normal SCM for whatever ship they're flying. You know, what was it that you were flying? A Pisces that I saw on Twitter, a Pisces or something.
Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, anything else you would like to add? I'm sorry, I kind of interrupted you there.
No, you're good. We're having a combo, dog.
Yeah.
No,
Exactly.
I mean, I don't really have a lot to add. I'm just same as before, man. I'm just excited to see what they add, and I'm excited to see the comments on Twitter of people losing their minds because that's obviously going to happen.
I mean, we have seen this
Uh,
over the last 2-3 weeks on Spectrum. People just losing their minds on Spectrum and on Twitter and on YouTube. I know Avenger One did I watched it. It was like an hour long video. It was a very very good deep dive on master modes and all the changes master modes do. And a lot of people were angry about master modes and about his video specifically about what he said about master modes. And I actually don't think he was entirely wrong. I understand his perspective on it. Uh, but I guess we will see what it looks like when it hits the PU, hopefully in a month or two, is what I
yeah,
think we're looking at right now. Uh,
about a month away.
Probably. I mean, I think they said they're targeting like late April for release, something like that.
Hmm.
I heard something like that. That was said. Uh, anyway, so I guess if that's all, I'm gonna let you go, and I'm gonna continue the show on my own because we got no one else in the waiting room right now. Where is everybody? I announced this a week ahead of time. Anyway, Kiosa, thank you very much again for joining us. Lucky that your work got moved and you could join us for a little bit. Thank you again. Fly safe, and I'll see you in the verse. And I'm gonna move you back up to waiting room, and you're free to go.
Cool. Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
See
All right, that was our first caller. Hopefully, someone else is gonna show up. I'm gonna crew. Are you sure you're not gonna hop on? I would like to hear from you a little bit. If I see you're online, I see you on Discord. Just hop into the waiting room, and I will drag you in. Anyway, so as I said, there was a lot of contention going about master modes. Starting at CitizenCon, actually, people were like, "Oh, why are we doing this?" And then it kind of went quiet because there was nothing new coming out in master modes. Hey, Kiosa, absolutely, thank you for joining us, and have fun at work. Hopefully the hours go by fast. So there was a little bit of silence after CitizenCon about master modes. Then I think they had one Inside Star Citizen about master modes where they showed a couple more things about what was going on. Then again, silence for a long time, and then they were like, "Oh, master modes are in Arena Commander in the PTU," and it was just Gladius for the first couple months, I think. It's been a while. We had like access to master modes for like 6 months now, I think. What is it? It's early March. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's been around 6-ish months for master modes as we're going. And anyway, while I'm blabbering on about master modes, feel free to go in the waiting room. Go in the waiting room. I will scoop you up at the earliest convenience, which is going to be immediately. Anyway, where was I at? The cat is not joining us today. I think she's afraid. Camera shy, that one. Anyway. So then they introduced more ships into Arena Commander Master Modes. And that's where it got really interesting because they actually put in, because they had the Gladius as a light fighter, because now we're actually getting into, because Master Modes is just one thing of the giant change that they are trying to get in along with Master Modes. One of those things, or another one of those things is general weapons rework, which is where ballistics are coming back. There's going to be a lot more ammo in ballistics. General how weapons are working is getting reworked. Now they're doing that whole weapon archetype, anti-fighter, anti-material, anything else, which there has got to be a better name for it. Like, we can't be putting weapons in categories like, oh yeah, we got 3 categories and one of them is called anything else. Because that's what we got right now. And I don't think that's right. I don't think we should do that. Anyway. So they're adding weapon spread, generally capacitor rework, that kind of stuff. The weapon spread part is actually, for me, the most interesting. I'm curious to see how that's going to work, especially with turreted weapons, now that they have all turrets having auto gimbals and, the precision aim mode, all of that good stuff. We will see. I'm very curious to see how that's going to work. I don't know if all of that's going to be in 323. I would hope all of that's going to be in 323 because I don't think master modes make sense alone on its own without all the other changes that come with it. But more importantly, the thing that I think is the important part of master modes is that they are now putting ships in archetypes also. And they have presented a few options. I think they said they're going to have light, medium, heavy fighters. They're going to have corvettes or frigates. They're going to have, gunships, that kind of stuff. And now they're like putting all ships into those categories and tune them based on that category. And that's one of the things people were upset about, is that they started putting non-combat ships like the Prospector into combat archetypes. So apparently a Prospector, according to CIG, is a light fighter. At face value, makes absolutely no sense. But when you look at it from a balance and implementation point of view, it actually kind of starts falling together. Because what they're trying to do, because like, what is the criteria based on which you split up ships, right? They had to pick something. In this case, they picked size. Most likely. Like, because they could have picked any arbitrary metric by which to categorize ships. They picked size. That's fine. That's the easiest thing to do, in my opinion. And that's probably the same thing I would do. And the reason they're doing this is that they're going to make all of them equal in that given archetype. So all light fighters are going to be equal. Which is, if they really do it kind of that hard equal where everything works the same, it's going to be very hilarious with the Prospector for a couple months. And then they're going to adjust them from there. So that means they could add more archetypes, most importantly. So they could start putting in like, oh, it's a small industrial ship. And start tuning from there. Or they come up with whatever else. And they start changing the capacitor balance, thruster ratios, that kind of stuff. And from there, you start balancing out different ships and make them good at different things. But generally, if you stay within the same archetype, it's a light fighter. It does what a light fighter does. It's fast, it has reasonable amounts of firepower, and it is pretty fragile. Like it's going to fall apart if you look at it too hard. So I think that's the general idea. And the important bit on this is that if they introduce a new ship, they say, oh, this is a light fighter archetype. That gives them a baseline from which they can balance that ship from, which is very important because balancing ships is... Balancing anything in Star Citizen is infinitely difficult, and I think they're trying to make it easier on themselves, and I absolutely respect that. That's what they should have done at the start. And I think that's one of the many points of contention. Also, the whole switch between modes. Now, when you think about it, actually, from a perspective of other games, mode switching is not a new thing. Elite does mode switching, but not for navigation and combat. They just do it from, it's combat versus... They call it combat mode or analysis mode. Come on, Spacey, we're playing Elite yesterday. And what this basically allows you to bind multiple things on the same keybinds and just have them on 2 layers, essentially. So it has nothing to do with how your ship behaves. It just has to do with how you interact with your ship, which is definitely one way of doing it, sure. So yeah, 2 modes, not a new thing. How it's going to work with navigation versus combat, we will see. I understand their general idea of like, we want to make combat more cinematic. So we have to slow it down, bring it closer together. So you have to do this. Because on the other hand, you have, space is massive. And it's not going to be fun to travel at 150 meters per second all the time. So you kind of have to figure out a balance. See how you're trying. That's all I can say. Whether that's going to work, we don't know. We don't know if that's going to work. But I'm curious to try. I've tried it in Arena Commander quite extensively, and I liked what I saw in Arena Commander. And both in Free Fly, I tried it. I tried the race modes. I'm not much of a racer, but it was okay. I didn't suck any more than I usually suck. Exactly, crew. It's a good way to test it. It's an alpha. Exactly. Now we have time to test it and go back on it if we need to. Though I don't think they're gonna go back on it. I don't think it's a. I don't think this is another hover mode situation. That was very fun. They stepped that back very quickly because it wasn't good. And I think they might actually bring back hover mode. Or actually, well, they did say they're gonna bring back hover mode essentially at CitizenCon with the new IFCS. Though I don't think that's gonna be part of 3.3 at all. Oh yeah, hover mode was fun. You could see what they were trying to do with hover mode. but it didn't work out the way they wanted to, especially with how IFCS was working back then. What they showed off at CitizenCon, on the other hand, with exactly, we do have the new proximity hover. So what they showed off at CitizenCon, I think that makes a lot more sense, and it essentially prevents people from hovering over a location and just camping it unless they have a ship that can do that. Which is, when you think about it, there's actually a lot of ships that can do that. You got the Valkyrie, it's got VTOLs. You got the Terrapin, got VTOLs. You have pretty much every Crusader ship besides the MSR and the Ares also have VTOLs. Yes, the Spirit has VTOLs, for those who didn't know, and they're very useful. So do the Starlifters. They also, what else has hover mode? Starfarer doesn't have hover mode, but it does have VTOLs. It just doesn't have like toggleable VTOLs, but it has VTOLs. Prospector has VTOLs. Mole has VTOLs. So a lot of ships out there have VTOLs because they're designed to be hovering around an area. Though, what I think would actually be pretty cool is that if you were mining planetside with a prospector, you would actually have to land to mine a rock in front of you. I think that would be very interesting, but it would be very, very annoying because you would have to land, point your laser at it, stay there, crack it, and then just like lift, land elsewhere, and start doing this. So that would get very annoying very quickly. So yeah, so much on that. The concern that we're hearing about master modes a lot. I'm sorry, I'm gonna take a drink because I'm talking too much. No one's calling, so I'm talking too much. Now then I have to drink. Anyway, since the cat is not here, look at my fox mug. Anyway, apparently, I can't have a pet fox, so I have a fox mug and a pet cat. Then again, I'm not sure if I own the cat. I think the cat owns me. Well, that's a debate for another time. Anyway, so the main concern a lot of people have with master modes is that how do you run away? Because when you switch from SCM to nav mode, you lose your shields while the nav mode pulls up, and once it pulls up, you zoom away. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, I'm going to be long dead by the time I start speeding up. And they are correct. With the current state of things, they are correct. Because once you lose your shields, you're gone. Because armor doesn't exist right now. Once armor is in game, I think what CAG is going to do is that they are going to make industrial ships and cargo ships be very, very tanky. Like, give them a lot of armor so they can take a bunch of hits. And what I didn't know, actually, when I was making my video on master modes last week, I didn't know if you would have to be in SCM or nav mode to mine and stuff. And apparently in SC Live, they said that you have to be in SCM mode. So you do have shields, and then if you are running away, you lose shields. It's a bit of a questionable situation. To that, I have sort of two counterpoints. Number one is that you can boost away in SCM, gain speed, then switch to nav mode, and then start going away. And you're going to have to do that anyway, especially if you're planet side, because you're going to be slowed down by atmosphere. So you're going to have to zoom away in boost and then switch to nav mode and run away. Unless your attacker has interdictors or quantum dampeners, you might make it. The second, or I guess third point on that is somewhere along the line, there's going to be a radar rework. If you read the monthly report, which came out on Thursday or Friday, I'm not sure, there was a paragraph on radar refactor. And what CIG are doing is, can you loudly whisper chimichanga? I guess that's what yours. I guess that's your loud whisper there, Ken, because I read the message out loud. So what they're doing with radars is that they're refactoring the entire radar code, which, in my opinion, was long overdue because radars in Star Citizen don't work. They have never worked for as long as I've been playing Star Citizen. And scanning has been broken for like 3 patches now. And so what they are going to do now is that I think they said they're unifying the output of radars so that every person who has a radar actually sees data from the same source kind of a thing. What I think that is a run-up to is the scanning and radar changes they showed off at CitizenCon. So your scanner and your radar is going to have a much, much larger range. So you're going to know if you're about to be jumped. You're going to know very far out. And I think that's going to be the second thing they're going to do after armoring up all industrial ships, that are going to have them very, very powerful radars. Because when you think about it, a light fighter, I saw a very good analogy on Spectrum at some point. And it was that, you know, a light fighter is the equivalent of a fighter jet, a modern fighter jet. And when you open up a fighter jet right now, you take an F-22 and you open a panel, it is full of electronics. It is full of things that thing needs to fly. You open any panel on that plane, there is something critical behind it. There is no room, not a cubic centimeter of room in that plane besides the cockpit. And that's where the pilot goes. On the other hand, you have an industrial ship, which is going to be, you know, it's going to be your 2-engine Cessna. It's going to be your C-130. There is room on those planes. And those planes can take a hit. Well, I guess it depends on how big of a hit. Anyway, but there is room. So CIG, I think, are banking on, we have light fighters. We can't put as much stuff in them, so they're going to have a weaker radar. They're not going to have as much armor, or they're only going to have armor in some critical parts. Not as much fuel. Fuel is still not that big of a critical issue with light fighters right now, in my opinion. Like, they still have plenty of fuel. There's not going to be as much ammo, because now, actually, with the weapon rework they're doing for master modes, they are doing different ammo, or it will enable them to do different ammo counts on weapons on different ships, which I think is kind of a lead up to them doing larger ammo counts on ballistics on turrets, which I think would be very interesting, because that's something they said that they are looking into, and I think this refactor they're doing is actually necessary for this. And sort of to circle back to my point, you have an industrial ship, it has more room on it, you can put more armor on it, and you can put a more powerful radar on it, and generally more powerful components. So what I think they will end up doing is like, we will upsize radars on all non-combat ships, or like on all non-combat ships, let's say, or all small non-combat ships, let's say, within the light fighter category, so Prospector versus a Gladius or something. So, a Gladius, it's very limited room. It's a small ship. A Prospector, on the other hand, is a pretty big ship. There is a lot of room on a Prospector. So you can put a bigger radar in there, more shields, more backups. Once component damage becomes a thing, you will need redundancies. Most light fighters don't have a redundancy. I think, does Gladius have 2 components for everything? I think it has 2 power plants and 2 everything. But the Arrow doesn't. The Fury doesn't. The Razor doesn't. The Razor only has 1 of everything. I think it has 2 coolers because it's a race ship and stealth ship by default. The Prospector has redundancies already. The Prospector has 2 power plants, I think, right now, if I'm not mistaken, which I possibly am, because I never upgrade my Prospector. I just put a different mining laser and different quantum drive on it. Anyway, that was a very long tangent about master modes, and I have no idea where I was going with it, but I have been going on about it for like 15 minutes now. Yeah. Seriously, does no one want to call in? Come on, crew. Come talk to us about master modes. Or anyone, really. I was hoping Masachi or Numidius were going to show up, but they're both busy. The crew has arrived. Crew, you're unmuted. Welcome, good sir. Can we hear you?
Thank you. Yes, I had to turn down your YouTube so I didn't get double feedback.
There you go. Crew, welcome on the show. Let me put your name on there, and we're set. So, welcome. So, master modes, your thoughts, your fears, your deepest desires about master modes.
I actually think master modes is pretty nice. I think the weapon engagement really needs balancing.
Go on.
Well, essentially, because everybody's complaining about master modes. Oh, it's too slow. It doesn't let you disengage when you want to. Well, I mean, speed is relative. If everybody's going 10 miles an hour, well, everybody's going 10 miles an hour. If everybody's going 100 miles an hour, everybody's going 100 miles an hour. The relative distances, even in a space simulator like this, is relative to, how fast you're going. So at that point, it's really about weapon engagement. How far or how close can I be in order to, one, get a positive target, and
Exactly.
two, get hits on target.
And you know, I am not a combat pilot, but I tried. We had Arena Commander, Pirate Swarm, Vandal Swarm, and I think they had squadron battles there for a second. I tried all of them, and it does not feel slow to me. I don't feel like the speed has changed. I imagine, you know, someone who is an Arena Commander in the PU or does PvP 10 hours a week, you know, it's all they do. I think they will feel it's a little slow, but for me, it's not slow. For me, it's the speed I would like it to, I guess.
Oh, I agree. I think, you know, it's just going to be something people get used to. It's like when they put out the new flight model during 318.
Yeah. Actually, I feel like the 318 flight model wasn't that big of a change. I think they did a different one in 314 or 315, which was a bigger one, and that actually kind of set apart a lot of ships. And then the 318 flight mode update, flight model update was just kind of a correction into what it is now, I think. But to be fair, that was many moons ago, and my memory doesn't serve me that well anymore.
Oh no, I think you're right. I think that was kind of one of that progressive change, because if you, I mean, I don't know, I've been playing a long time, but if you remember back to 2015, 2016, the Avenger used to be an interceptor, and it was really good at that. And then sometime around 2017, they changed that, and it no longer was an interceptor and didn't have the capability to fight other ships the way it did before.
Yeah, they really kind of honed in on the whole interceptor category at some point around that time, because they made the Avengers slower in the line, but they gave it a little bit more agility. And on the other hand, they took I think it's, what is the 350, the Buccaneer, the M50, and they really made them a little less agile, but they gave them a lot of forward speed, and that's how they kind of honed in the whole interceptor archetype. And I think they're actually retaining it as a separate category for ships with master modes. I think Yogi Klatt said that at some point, that they're doing that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that frames up, because once they did that adjustment, you know, that was years and years ago, I decided to move over to the Hornet platform. And so I've been flying Super Hornet for years now, and it's been great. And I switch over to the Gladius every once in a while, and it's been great.
I mean, the Super Hornet is a great ship. And I think it will be one of the ships that make a big comeback with master modes, especially now that, in my opinion, heavy fighters and medium fighters with a turret are going to be very, very important. And they were important even now. I mean, you know, people talk a lot about, light fighter meta, Gladius, Arrow, everything. Every time I die to a hurricane. Because for some reason, every time I am in the direction that the turret is pointing, no matter what I do. But maybe that's a skill issue. Who knows?
Oh yeah, no, the Hurricanes will definitely clean up stuff a lot, and the Sabres too.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of looking forward to that, because Saber now falls into the medium fighter archetype, and they're probably going to balance it towards. And I have one, and I never fly it because it sucks right now. And maybe it's gonna make a comeback, and maybe it's actually gonna be useful for a while. Yeah, for someone who doesn't fly combat, I have a lot of combat ships. Don't ask me why. I don't know.
I'm sure it was because it was cool at the time.
Yeah, I think I got a Saber because I'm like, I like this ship. I know it's stealth. And then I found out that stealth doesn't exist. So that was kind of a disappointment. But it was still a good ship. It was a good ship up until 318, something like that. 320, possibly. Then I think when they did capacitors, that's when it became a little bit tedious, because it doesn't have a big enough capacitor to run 4 guns. So you would have to swap ballistics and kind of suffer with that, or do very weird power management to make it effective. Plus, I think they made it a little bit less agile, so it couldn't really compete, especially in like entry-level bounties, because for some reason you would fight an M50 every time, at least I would, which was painfully annoying. And that's around the time I stopped doing bounties at all, because it was just annoying, because there was an M50 flying circles around me no matter what I was doing.
Oh yeah, I hate coming up against M50s and bounties.
Yeah, and you will usually have one of them in there. Like every single time I do a bounty, there's an M50. For whatever reason, bad guys like to fly M50s. I don't know what is it about that ship, but for some reason, every single time.
Well, see, that's why you got to wrap up your bounties so that you can just get onto the ERTs and the VRTs.
Right, yeah, go right on the hammerheads, for which I have no answer in my entire fleet. Oh, I can ram them very effectively. That's about all I can do to a hammerhead.
Nice.
That's, yeah, I mean, technically, no, because everything I have only has a size 3 missile max. Because I think the 400 I can field a size 3 missile if you swap out the missile racks. I think it can, because it has size 1s and size 2s by default. And you can swap out one of the racks for a size 3. And that's
pretty cool.
Yeah. And yeah, that's, I think, the biggest missile I have. Though I have been thinking about getting a Vanguard Harbinger because I love that ship. The problem is that I have no room for it in my fleet because I don't want to get rid of my Saber, and I can't upgrade my Gladius because it's a referral one. And I like all my other ships. And my Zeus or my 400 I already slotted to be upgraded to a Galaxy, so I can't really do much there. Yeah, fleet problems. Star Citizen player fleet problems right there.
Hashtag large fleet.
Yeah. Anyway, did you have a chance to test out Master Modes in Arena Commander?
I haven't. I've kind of been slacking on actually going into Arena Commander just because I'm not a fan of Arena Commander matching.
Yeah, weirdly enough, it's been pretty good. Now that they have the Arena Commander team going, and those guys, I was actually very skeptical about the Arena Commander team when they announced that they're doing this. I was like, oh, that's like another resource sink. But they have proven me wrong, and I like it when CIG prove me wrong. They have been really sort of putting things out very regularly. I mean, they have their whole separate patch notes every patch. If you have noticed, they're kind of hidden.
Yeah.
They put them in a comment, but it's way longer than the actual patch notes for the past 2-3 patches now. Like major patches, they have had like, oh, big Arena Commander rework, Arena Commander this, Arena Commander that. And now it's actually a pretty decent mode, especially the flight modes. Like Pirate Swarm is infinitely fun now, both normal and Master mode. The FPS modes need a little more work, but that's just general FPS issues in Star Citizen. It has never been good, in my opinion, and it needs a little bit of work.
Yeah, I can definitely. And I always wonder about that because you mentioned they buried in the comments. Why don't they put more of the Arena Commander changes in the release notes? Because it's part of the patch.
I actually don't know why they do this. My assumption is that because what I would do is I would just like put out separate patch notes for it. Be like, oh, 320 whatever Arena Commander patch notes. But for some reason they just put them in the comments. I think they do it so that people can't say, oh, it's just Arena Commander, this patch. So they put it in the comments somewhere, so it's a little bit out of sight, like it's not the main attraction of the whole thing. But the interesting thing that they can do, apparently, and they haven't done yet, is that Arena Commander, being a separate module, they can have their own releases. Like, completely separate of the game. They can have an Arena Commander release. And they haven't done it, even though they said that they have the capability. And that's what I'm wondering about, why they haven't done that. Because that could just speed up Arena Commander development so much. Because the way they put out things for Arena Commander, they could have an Arena Commander patch every 2 weeks.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. And then you can actually drive focus from the players to say, oh, hey, go look at this new thing while you're waiting for the next patch.
Exactly. And I don't know why they're not doing this. I imagine it's kind of a political move from CIG. Let's call it that. But I would like them to do it. Like I want to see. Like I had my doubts about the Arena Commander team, but I want to see what they can do. Let's do an Arena Commander release whenever they can. Like every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. Let's do it. I want to see it.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. I mean, because that's another one of those modes. Like you look at Gun Rush, which I always remember Gunmaster from Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. That's a mode. I love those two games. That's a mode that I haven't actually played, even though I would very much be geared up and interested for Gun Rush because I love those modes so much in Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4.
I tried them in Arena Commander / Star Marine, the most recent ones, It comes close enough to where you go like, oh yeah, this like that Battlefield nostalgia, but it's missing something. It's still missing something, but it's missing something because there is kind of like FPS combat and FPS gameplay in Star Citizen in general has been kind of on a back burner for the past 2 years maybe.
Right.
But that's with 323. We got the crosshair changes, they got the scope changes, they got the procedural recoil, and I believe we actually have some of that already in. They have kind of the ammo UI rework and general UI rework, so I think it's gonna get better. I know that some people are feeling a little bit weird about some Battlefield and Call of Duty features making it into Star Citizen, but I think it's necessary in order to get a good FPS experience in Star Citizen. Though I understand the other side of the conversation there, because a lot of people are like, oh, Star Citizen was supposed to be more Arma-like, and like it's supposed to be more tactical, more simulation-like. But and my counterpoint is that like Arma is great, but it's not fun. I love Arma,
Right.
but it's not fun. Like I play Arma because I want to suffer, because I want to. and the same thing with Squad. I used to play Squad, and I stopped because
yeah.
I could not hit anything. I would just die. Like my entire Squad gameplay would be that I would die. That's my whole thing. That's my entire 30 plus hours I have on Squad before I gave up. Which
Just being a meat shield.
yeah, literally. I had a good, and I think this is going to be pretty important in Star Citizen as well. I had a good few games in Squad just being the medic, and my gameplay style as a medic was that, I kept crawling and it kept working, and just like bandaging everybody around me, and that was it. That was my most successful game of Squad, because I only died once, because I never lifted myself off the ground from the moment I spawned in all the way to us losing the game. I need to go back to Squad because apparently it's very good now. But apparently a lot of people are now playing Hell Let Loose. They call it the PTSD simulator, and I don't think I need more of that in my life. Anyway, we got...
Oh, yeah, they call it Helldivers over here in the US.
Oh, yeah. Helldivers is another thing that I'm probably gonna have to try because everybody's playing Helldivers right now. Anyway, but we got way off topic there. So that's what I think is missing from the FPS experience. We will see what is happening, but anyway, master modes. So master modes, you got the mode switching. Did you have a look at all the weapons changes that they're doing? The gimbals removing N-1. Weapon spread is my favorite. That's my favorite change they got in there. Have you looked?
Yes. Yeah, that's going to be amazing. I've been wishing for that since 2019 to take off the stupid gimbal pucks.
Yeah,
and have everything gimbal. That's just a great idea.
But that's kind of the thing, everything is gimbaled, but nothing is really, because they're removing auto gimbals from everything but turrets, which is a good choice in my opinion, because it gives turrets the edge they need. But the counterpoint does it fix the issues that auto gimbals have right now? Which is it going to be immune to pip wiggling? Is it actually going to hit something? Because right now it's just easier to fly fixed. In my opinion, at least. People are going to disagree with me on that one.
Right. Well, and that's really, comes down to the way they calculate the gimbals and the delay in the gimbal mechanic.
Yeah. And they also have that, they call it the precision aiming mode. That's the one that kind of stumped me a little bit. That's the one I didn't expect.
Well, because they've always had kind of a little bit of targeting,
they
buried in the game for since 2020.
They've had it since forever, actually. They have. I remember it way back that you could target engines. I remember in like 2016, you would occasionally get a bounty caterpillar, and I would be doing bounties in a Cuddy Black. And there isn't much you can do to a caterpillar in a Cuddy Black, but what you could do is you could shoot off the engines, and then eventually the caterpillar would just crash into something, and you would succeed the mission. And you could do that with sub-targeting. And it would take so long, because it would take pretty much all of your ammo to do this. Just one caterpillar. It was totally not worth it, but it was a lot of fun. So they have had
Right,
it for
that's
a
what they
while.
called it, sub-targeting. I
Yeah.
can't even remember what the hotkey was for that.
I think it's 6 or 7. I don't ask me. I don't know. I know I have it bound on my throttle, but that's I don't think I have used it in the last year and a half because I don't think
Right,
it matters
neither
that
have
much.
I. It just kind of fell by the wayside because a
Yeah,
lot of big ship targets, I would always use lag pips instead of lead
yeah,
pips because I only used lead pips when it was a small target.
yeah. And I mean, when you think about it, it right now it doesn't entirely matter if you target subcomponents of a ship because it's all one health pool. I
Right.
suppose if you're fighting like a Valkyrie or something, if you shoot off the engines, it's gonna make it a little bit slower. Like the Valkyrie, if you start shooting off engines, it's gonna go down very quickly, especially in Atmo now that
Yeah.
you have atmospheric bounties. But uh, still, it's not something that you, on a casual level, I guess, that you would actively be managing with yourself during combat. At least I don't. But again, I'm not a
Right.
combat player, so
Well, yeah, and that's kind of the use case is the only reason I would switch from a lead pip to a lag pip is
yeah,
so that I could blow off the engine on a Valkyrie.
yeah. And that's kind of a, I would say, very limited use case because I can't really think of another ship that would be severely crippled by this. Reclaimer possibly, but if you have a bounty reclaimer in Atmo, you don't really have to do much. It's just gonna flip over eventually, and you can kill it. Uh, so
I could see it being useful for the C1 and the C2 as well because they have the separate pods for the thrusters
true,
and
true.
engines.
Yeah, but when you think about it, in the C1 and the C2, like the main thrusters, they're very much sort of in the main body of the ship. So at that point, I don't think it matters where you shoot. Same
Ah,
thing with the
true.
MSR. Uh, I suppose on the C1 and C2, you could shoot off the VTOLs, but I don't see how that's gonna affect performance. Uh,
No, not a combat situation. I mean, heck, I hardly use the VTOLs as they are.
on the C1 and on the Spirit in general, not particularly useful, but on the Starlifter, I like it. It's useful when you're landing somewhere like in Lorville. When you're landing in Lorville, that's when it's useful because it's usually windy in Lorville, and it keeps trying to blow you off the hangar. There, the VTOLs really help, at least in my opinion. Uh,
Oh, yeah, that could be useful. Well, I always vector land when I'm there, so I don't really notice it.
yeah, me too. But sometimes when it just gets too windy, technically, does the Karak have VTOLs? It does not, right? It just has like the weird shield thingy on the landing gear. It doesn't have VTOLs actually.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So that's what I was thinking. That could be another one where it has that. Anyway, so I think we have exhausted ourselves to the point of having nothing else on master modes to pick apart. So crew, thank you very much for joining us. I hope I will see you on another show in the future. And yeah, I will let you go because we have a staff meeting in an hour.
Oh, definitely. Glad to help.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I will drag you back up, and yeah, you have a great night, and I will see you in an hour. Thank you.
Thanks, you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we had our 2 callers. Nobody else is lined up right now. So I think I'm going to call it. It's been an hour for a stream, and I think that's pretty much about where I would like to keep these episodes. Because I know since I only had 2 callers, I was kind of stringing everybody along for a long time. But normally what I aim for is 5 to 10 minutes per caller. That's if you watch the first episode we had, that's what we did. We did like 10 minutes per caller because we had 4 people, I think, 4 or 5 people in there. And so that's what I'm aiming for. Maybe 6 to 10 callers every show. Hopefully in next weeks that's gonna happen. The next show is going to be, now this one's gonna be complicated. So next show is gonna be on the 23rd of March this year. Absolutely, crew. Absolutely, anytime. Happy to have had you on the show. Hope to see you next time. So next show is gonna be on the 23rd. I am going to announce if it's gonna be morning or evening, because I need to think about it. I need to think about which one's gonna be which. But if we are gonna do it in a regular controlled fashion, I think it's gonna be a morning one. And then the next evening one, so that's going to be, this one is evening one. I know most of you watching are in the US, so it's early afternoon for you, but it's evening for me. So the next evening one is going to be on April 6th. Except on April 6th, I am not in country because I'm going to be back in Slovakia voting for president because we have presidential elections. It's not just you Americans this year. Anyway, so that will be all for tonight. Thank you all for, there you go, 12:55 p.m. Texas. So thank you all for joining me today on the Comm Relay. Hope to see all of you and more of you on the next one or in the recording. The recording is going to be available on YouTube in the next however long it takes YouTube to put it up there because it does it automatically for me. I don't know what the topic's going to be, but I will figure out something fun. I think we're going to do, I don't know what we're going to do. If you have any suggestions on topics, do post them on Discord, on the Armory Discord. I'm very happy to listen to your suggestions. And yeah, with that being said, that's all for tonight. Thank you all for watching. Oh no, crew just got modded by Stream Elements. Oh no. I'm sorry, crew. You upset the bot. Anyway, thank you all for watching. See you in the next one. Fly safe, and I will see you in the verse. Good night.